Hey, it's Penny here. Welcome to another reading vlog. I'm starting this in my regular video spot, but this vlog I'm really going to try and do more than just spend all my time in this spot. Because next week when I start my new job, I'm probably going to be here all the time and I bet I'm going to get really sick of it. Anyway, let's talk about the books that I'm planning to read this week. So obviously, I will be continuing Oathbringer. I almost made it up to page 200 last night, which was my goal. I wanted to get to page 200 before September started. This is the first day of September, but I was 10 pages short and I was so tired, so I fell asleep. I am really enjoying this though. There are some really funny bits. I don't know if everyone would find them funny, but they're just the kind of thing I find funny, so I am really enjoying this. Not much has really happened yet, but we're about to get going, I think. There have been some really interesting things, but I don't know, I feel like Brandon Sanderson always kind of sneaks up on you with his novels. Like you think nothing's happening and then everything's exploding. So I'm going to continue that. Also this week I've realized this book is going to be due back at the library. I'm probably going to just return it late. There's a hold queue. I can't renew it, but whatever. This is a bunch of short stories, so I might try and read like 1 or 2 a day until I finish it, and maybe a few extra ones here and there so that I could finish it this week and return it maybe only a couple of days late. And I think probably the best summary of this is what it says on the front, which is 16 stories of black girl magic, resistance, and hope. It is a really beautiful cover, and I'm excited to read that, even though I don't often like short story anthologies, so we'll see how we go. I do also have another tiny secret library project book to read this week, but hopefully, since it's so short, I should be able to fit it in, although the text is very small, which doesn't help. But I have read the first chapter and I loved it, so fingers crossed with that one. Audiobooks. I am nearly finished reading the 3rd book in the Percy Jackson series, Percy Jackson and the Titan's Curse. I'm really enjoying it. It's just kind of typical Percy Jackson though. I don't feel like there's been anything mind-blowing. I really regret not reading this series when I was a kid, because I think I would have absolutely loved it when I was younger. Although, when did these books come out? Is the problem just that I'm too old? 2007. I think if I'd read this at 2007, I would have still been a tiny bit too old, but I still probably would have liked it. Oh well, just another downside of being old. The other audiobook that I'll probably be listening to this week is Stormfront by Jim Butcher, which is the first book in the Dresden Files. I don't know much about it except that some guy called Harry Dresden, I was going to say Harry August, but that's a different Harry. Harry Dresden is doing some kind of paranormal investigations. It's a really popular series, so I thought I would start it. And audiobooks are a good way to go, although I have recently put a hold on or borrowed a lot of audiobooks from the library, and I haven't actually had as much time for listening to audiobooks lately, especially like going back to work. Often that would mean listening to more on my commute, but since I'm going to be working from home, we're not going to have the commute. So I'm going to need to work that out. Although I do think I'm going to start going for some walks with my sister again, so that might help. Not that I listen to audiobooks while I'm walking with her, but while I'm walking to walk with her. Other than reading this week, I'm pretty much just spending money that I haven't earned yet in preparation for my new job, which starts next week. I'm going to try and get heaps of reading done this week so that next week I don't feel too pressured with my TBR. So this morning I went to the mall, and I am going to be avoiding the mall in the near future because there were way too many people and it was really annoying me how so many people just aren't really taking precautions at all. So gonna avoid it there. Also, I did go to the library, which in comparison was like blissfully quiet. And when I was there, I picked up the 2nd volume of Ascender. So this is the follow-on series from Descender, which is one of my favorite graphic novel series. The first series was about this war between humans and robots. Now things are even weirder and there's magic. Still got robot, kind of. Anyway, I really love this series, so I'm excited to get back to it. Also, while I was at the library, they have a little free section outside, and I got Red Sister. I'm not really sure whether I'll really want to read the physical version because it is quite big, and I've heard mixed things, although most people are very positive about the series. It's all like an assassin school series. It's very popular though, so I was pretty excited to get it for free, even though like it's a library copy, so it's not in the best condition, but still, maybe I could take off the plastic. I don't think I've ever tried that with a library book before, but it might be nicer without it. As well, while I was walking there and walking back, and also last night when I went for the first run in a little while, I did listen to more of Stormfront. So apparently I'm 60% through and I'm quite enjoying it. It is reminding me a lot of the Kate Daniels series by Alona Andrews, which is one of my most favorite series, just in that it's the same kind of paranormal investigations where they're following kind of this typical private investigator type process to try and solve a crime. It just happens that it's a paranormal crime. I will say though, the Kate Daniels world is a lot more interesting than the Harry Dresden world, which is just like a regular world, except that there happens to be vampires and fairies and wizards. Harry Dresden is a wizard. But he as well is also quite generic and boring. Like there's nothing that interesting about him, and like every woman seems to be some kind of romantic interest, and that gets tiring pretty fast. But I do think like it's almost like these kind of books are the male equivalent of like paranormal romance, because it almost is that same split between the paranormal and the romance aspect. And when I say romance, I really just mean talking about people's physical attributes and being turned on by them, that kind of thing. Which isn't really romance at all. We should call it something else. Anyway, I'm enjoying it. I probably will finish this off tonight and tomorrow. As well as that, I did read the first couple of stories of A Phoenix First Must Burn. I wouldn't say either of them were amazing. They were fine. The first one was about these orcs that attack the Earth from outer space. But I feel like the ending was meant to be a twist, but there were just a few too many obvious clues earlier on. And then the second one was about this girl with metal magic. And also she's some sort of slave, so they're considering whether they should use her powers to escape. Anyway, both those stories were okay, but about what I expected so far. I will try and read some more of this today as well. Good morning! So I'm about to head off and spend the day with Jace, but I thought I would check in with you guys about my reading. I feel like I haven't read that much, but I still have a fair amount to update you on. So, firstly, I finished off Stormfront. It was okay. I didn't feel like the mystery wrapped up in a particularly amazing way. And honestly, I kept getting confused about the different women characters because I keep wanting to call him Harry August. Harry Dresden keeps being attracted to like all these different women, and I just get confused because other than the woman cop, they all seem very similar, and they've all got like very generic names like Linda, Monica, Susan, Bianca. Is that all of them? And then the cop is Karen, actually, Karen Murphy. So they're all very generic woman names. Anyway, that's probably not fair, but I get them confused because Harry treats them all mostly the same. Except for the cop, who I suspect might be the long-term love interest, but we will see what happens there, I guess. I will continue the series because I know, like, I compared it to the Kate Daniels series because it is that same kind of paranormal investigation thing, and I will admit the first book of the Kate Daniels series isn't as amazing as some of the rest of the series, so I know the Dresden Files are a really long series, so I'll read a few before I decide to give up on it. And the first book was fine. I just find the main character quite boring, but I'll continue. Then, since I finished that when I went for a walk yesterday with my mum and my sister, I started listening to the Wind Up Bird Chronicles, which is actually quite long. It's a 26-hour audiobook, so we'll see whether I can finish it off this week. And also, like, going into this, I knew that it was going to be weird because everyone talks about Haruki Murakami being quite strange, but I kind of expected it to be more whimsical strange. I think just because I've read some other Japanese works and they've been strange ones, because I like strange fiction, so that's what I go after. But they've been strange in more of a whimsical way. Although I guess I also really love Junji Ito, and that's definitely strange in a dark way. So Haruki Murakami is also quite dark. And like going into this book, so what I knew about it was that this guy's cat goes missing and then eventually his wife goes missing. So far his wife hasn't gone missing, but his cat is missing. And even though that's important, I think that what this book is actually going to be about is the difficulties of actually knowing someone, and like I guess the difficulty in knowing whether you know someone, because he's having kind of a strange relationship with his wife. He's just quit his job and he's like discovering things about her. There's also this really strange woman that he's talking to about his missing cat, and this really strange neighbor. A few weird like sexual things which I wasn't expecting. Also, I will say the audiobook narrator is not Japanese, which confused me at first, even though, I mean, it's an English translation. So I guess it's fine. But it is a bit weird since everybody has Japanese names, but the narrator doesn't sound Japanese at all. But I guess there are Japanese people that don't have very obvious accents. I guess it's fine. It just for some reason wasn't what I was expecting. Anyway, while I'm driving to Jason's and around the place, I will listen to some more of that. I am kind of enjoying it, even though it's weird. I like weird. As well, I have read a few more stories of this, and mostly I just think it's because I don't really like short stories, although I did notice that the one that I liked the most is this one where there is a girl who is like an apprentice sorcerer, but it seems like the sorcerer doesn't really want her to be an apprentice because she's a woman and she's fat. But then there's something going on with dragons and she goes chasing after the dragons. And that was probably the one I liked the most, but I would also say it's the one with the most simplest storytelling techniques and also the one with the least elements of like Black culture. So I'm about halfway through and I'm trying to be really self-aware as I continue reading this to try to make sure that the reason why I'm not liking it is not because I'm being put off by racial differences. I don't think it's that, but like I want to be self-aware as I'm reading it, so I'm watching out for that. Also, I will note that I realized that Rebecca Roanhorse was the author of one of the short stories, and I really like her longer works, so I thought, oh, maybe I'll really like her one, and I looked up which one it was, and I'd already read it, and I thought it was boring. So, I don't know, maybe I just don't like short stories, which I knew going into this. So I'll keep reading this probably tomorrow and we'll see how we go. I have also read a little bit more of this. I'm still not that far through, but I am, I think, 260 pages through. I'm a bit worried about Shellen and what's going on with her magical powers. And I think just in general, this is just so far opening lots more questions up for me, so I want to try and get through more of this. I just never seem to have the time, and how am I going to have more time next week when I'm working? I won't, so I don't know how I'm going to keep reading, how I'm going to go with my TBR, but we'll do as much as we can over the next few days. But today it's beautiful and sunny, so I'm going to go and enjoy the outside world with Jace, and then tomorrow when he's working, we'll come back and we'll try and sort out what we need to sort out before we start working again. So it is the last day before I start my new job, and I feel like I don't know where this week went. How was it my last day of freedom? How? Anyway, it is, so I'm trying to finish off all the things that are on my to-do list that I want to do, need to do, but I feel like I've lost all ability to prioritize. Regardless, it'll be fine. This book, I am about 3/4 of the way through, so I've got 4 more stories to read. I do think some of the ones that I have read more recently I have enjoyed. So I quite liked Melly by Justina Ireland, which was about this girl who does people's hair, and then this older lady has been stealing her business and she learns about what it is that she hasn't been doing. I also quite liked Kiss the Sun by E.B. Zaboy, which was about these like women who turn into fire to try and kiss the sun and like enact vengeance on men. There were some weird things in that too though that I'm not entirely sure that I understood. I feel like when I look at the titles of these, it's hard for me to remember which story it was. I still just think like short stories, there's never enough to them, so they're so easy to forget. I think it's really hard to write a really good short story. Anyway, I am glad that I'm enjoying it better. It does make me wonder whether it's more my mood that's making me enjoy them better. And I almost want to go back and reread the first few that I really didn't like, but then I don't have time for that, so I guess I won't be doing that. But I am going to try and finish the last 4 stories today. I'd also really like to read some more of Oathbringer because I'm still only page 260, I think. Yeah, 260. I haven't read any more of that. I really would have liked to have been further through this week, but oh, there's just never enough time. As well, I have listened to some more of the Wind Up Bird Chronicle. I am enjoying it. It's very strange. I feel like maybe I was slightly premature in saying that it was about the difficulty in knowing whether you know someone, although it's kind of still got some elements of that. But there's this weird thing where they go to do surveys of how bald men are. It's just so many strange people that he's interacting with, and like supposedly some of it has to do with the missing cat, but how, I don't really know. Anyway, it's enjoyable, but I don't know what the story is about, but I will keep reading that. Anyway, things to do. Good morning. So I am in town because I'm here to pick up my laptop for my first day of work. I did mean to finish this last night, but I didn't quite make it. I only finished a couple of stories yesterday, and like they were okay. They're just quite focused on young adult relationships, and I'm just a bit old for those kind of relationships, but I can totally see that probably the target market for this anthology would really like it. So I've got 2 more stories to go. I'm gonna try and finish them off today. I've actually got a little while before I actually can go and pick up my laptop, because of course I'm early, because I didn't know what traffic was gonna be doing, and it wasn't that bad. So I've got a little bit of time now, although I might not be able to focus, but I'm gonna try and read a little bit, and then I'll go pick up my laptop, and then I'll check in with you guys later. I survived my first day back at work, sort of. It's kind of weird, like, I finish work, and then I think, well, what home things do I want to do? Oh, things at the same desk that I've been sitting at all afternoon. And this was only a half day because in the morning I had to go into town and get the laptop. I don't know what a full day is going to be like. Weird, I think. I do think like I need to make sure like after work I go and do something else, like go for a walk with my mum or like get changed at least. I did take off my pants, even though like I could have just worn no pants all afternoon. But maybe I'll try to like get changed after work. If you're working remotely this whole time and you're an expert in it now, let me know what things do you do after you finish work to make it feel like you've actually finished work. One thing I did do is I read the last short story of this, and I read the second to last one while I was waiting in town. What were they about? Oh, the last one, I thought it was a really cool concept, but I didn't really like the execution because the execution was romance based. But if people like romance, it's probably pretty cool. I just wish, like, this is why I hate short stories. I wish the concept had been explored further. I think the one before that, The Witch's Skin, was kind of cool too. I just feel like all the stories that I enjoyed in this, I would have liked a longer story about those ones. But regardless, I have finished this, and in the end, even though I felt like the first ones were boring, there were a few I liked in here, so I'd probably give it 3 stars. I definitely think for the target market, it's probably a pretty good anthology and a lot of people will like it. So I'm glad I read it in the end. I haven't made any more progress with Oathbringer, so I won't talk about that. We'll have to deal with that later. The other thing I did do today was listen to quite a bit of the Wind Up Bird Chronicle, and pretty much the whole time it was just this guy who this main character has run into telling this big long story about the war, and it was kind of interesting because he's a Japanese soldier and that's a perspective I haven't read much about, so it was interesting to think about things in that way. But it went on for quite a long time, and it's not that it wasn't interesting, like it's well written, it's kind of strange like the rest of it, but what does it have to do with anything? I don't know. There were a few bits that I think might link in to the original character's story, but it was just weird because I almost felt like I was listening to a completely different book. Anyway, I will have to continue the Wind Up Bird Chronicle and Oathbringer next week. This week's already started. I'm finishing my vlog late, as I always seem to be lately, but I'm closer than I have been in recent times. Anyway, do let me know if you've read any of the books that I read this week, because I would love to talk with you more about them down in the comments. Otherwise, thank you for hanging out with me this week. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.